he ruled the longest in this Babylonian empire.
Na yeye ndiye aliyetawala kwa muda mrefu katika eneo kama nchi hiyo ya Babiloni.
And his people were known to be astrologers,
na watu wake walijulikana kuwa wasomi wa nyota,
and astronomers,
wale ambao wanaangalia jua,
immersed in the occult,
ambao walielewa mambo ya masiku.
They were into mystical and magical practices.
Na walikuwa wamezoea sana mambo ya miujiza na uchawi.
And his name is mentioned in the Bible.
Neno jina lake limetajwa mara 57 katika Biblia.
And in Daniel 1, he is introduced as the king who took the Hebrew boys.
Na katika Danieli 1 anatajwa kama mfalme aliyewachukua vijana wa Kiebrania.
And his idea was that he was going to train these youth.
Na wazo lake lilikuwa kwamba ataenda kuwafundisha vijana hawa
for the purpose of magical arts.
Kwa ajili ya uchawi wa ujuzi wa mambo ya uchawi.
And in Jeremiah 4:7,
na katika Yeremia 4:7,
God refers to him as the destroyer of nations.
Mungu anamtaja kama yule ambaye anatumika kuharibu mataifa.
And in Jeremiah 27:6,
na katika Yeremia 27:6,
God calls him his servant.
Na Mungu anamuita mtumishi wake.
We see that the reason that God wanted these Hebrew boys to go into captivity with them,
sababu fanya Mungu akaruhusu vijana wale wa Kiebrania waende utumwa.
The reason was because God wanted them to reveal the God of heaven.
Alikuwa na kusudi kwamba wakifika huko wapate kumfunua Mungu wa mbinguni.
They were told that they were to be Babylonians for 70 years.
Waliambiwa kwamba wakifika huko watatumikia wa Babiloni kwa miaka 70.
And they were told that they were not to rebel.
Na waliambiwa kwamba wakifika huko wasiwe wataukaidi.
But in return, the Israelites then were to reveal this God of heaven.
Lakini Waisraeli walipewa jukumu la kumfunua Mungu wa mbinguni kwa Babiloni.
So we see from the beginning that God's hand was all over this situation.
Tunaona kwamba tangu mwanzo mkono wa Mungu ulikuwa juu ya kila hatua.
And he's also known as the king who stole the lands and robbed the Hebrews of their riches.
Tunaona kwamba yeye ni mfalme ambaye aliwanyang'anya Waisraeli utukufu na utajiri wao.
But yet he allowed them to keep their idols in order to secure their cooperation.
Lakini alichunga miungu yao ili apate kuhakikisha kwamba uhusiano unadumu.
We see that God gave Nebuchadnezzar 3 major opportunities to come to know him. The first one was when Nebuchadnezzar had a dream and he could not remember it. So he asked all of my dream and to interpret it. And of course none of them could read his mind. So he saw the farceness of them. But then someone said, "Have you considered Daniel?" And then Daniel actually told him what his dream was. And then interpreted it for him. And then the second time that Nebuchadnezzar came up against God was in that amazing story of the fiery furnace. And that was when he stood up from his throne. And he said, "I thought I put 3 men in there. But I see 4. And that 4th one looks like the Son of God." And so that was 2 amazing stories. The third amazing story was his bout of madness for 7 years. And why 7 years, do you think? Because it takes 7 years for our body to completely regenerate every cell.
Kwa maana inachukua miaka 7 miili yetu iweze kurudi katika hali yake ya kawaida.
In the Bible, the word 7 means perfect and complete.
Kwa Biblia 7 inamaanisha ukamilifu.
So that dream that Nebuchadnezzar had showed the rise and fall of the world powers.
Ndoto ile ambayo Nebukadneza aliota ilikuwa inaonyesha kuinuka na kuanguka kwa falme za dunia hii.
So he became very proud and arrogant.
Akawa mkaidi na akawa mjeuri sana.
And then in his second dream,
na katika ndoto yake ya pili,
he went from humiliation to restoration.
Aliweza kutoka pale ambapo aliangushwa hadi kuinuliwa.
He went from prideful to humble.
Akapata kutoka kwa hali yake ya kiburi hadi kwa unyenyekevu.
And looking at the big picture of what happened here,
na tunapoiangalia hiyo picha ya kile ambacho kilifanyika,
we can see his complete change in his attitude as he goes from one diet to the next.
Tunaona akibadilishwa hata kwa mawazo yake anaposonga kutoka kwa hatua moja ya vyakula hadi nyingine.
So I'd like to compare the different characteristics between Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar.
Ningependa kuweza kuona tofauti iliyoko kati ya Nebukadneza na Danieli.
So I've laid the foundation for their diets.
Nimewapa msingi wa vyakula vyetu.
So Daniel's diet was a whole food, plant-based, God-ordained diet.
Chakula ya Danieli ilikuwa ile ya halisi ambayo Mungu mwenyewe alianzisha.
Where Nebuchadnezzar's diet was the king's dainties.
Chakula ya Nebukadneza ilikuwa ni ile chakula ya kifalme.
It included all the sugar and the processed foods.
Ambayo ilihusisha sukari na vyakula vinavyotengenezwa.
All the meat and the dairy.
Na vyakula vya wanyama.
And the eggs and the alcohol.
Na pombe na mivinyo.
So let's look at now the characteristics between them two with their diets.
Kuona hao watu wawili vile wanavyohusiana na vyakula wanavyokula.
Daniel he honors his body as the temple of God.
Kwamba Danieli anaukuza mwili wake kama hekalu la Mungu.
And we see that Nebuchadnezzar indulged his diet.
Na tunaona Nebukadneza yeye alipenda tamaa za vyakula.
We see that Daniel had total commitment to God.
Danieli alijitoa kikamilifu kwa Mungu.
And we see that Nebuchadnezzar had a fleeting commitment to God.
Na Nebukadneza hakuwa amejitoa kabisa kwa Mungu.
We see that Daniel had a regular prayer life.
Tunamuona Danieli alikuwa anaomba kila mara.
And Nebuchadnezzar had no prayer life.
Na Nebukadneza hakuomba hata siku moja.
We see that Daniel sought approval of God above all else.
Kwamba kwa kila hatua Danieli aliuliza Mungu.
That he even risked offending the king.
Hata bora tu amfurahishe Mungu.
But we see that Nebuchadnezzar worked from his own approval.
Lakini Nebukadneza alitumia mawazo yake.
We see that Daniel sought wisdom from God.
Tunamuona Danieli aliomba sana hekima kutoka kwa Mungu.
And Nebuchadnezzar sought his own wisdom.
Na Nebukadneza alitumia hekima yake mwenyewe.
We see that Daniel never sought revenge.
Tunaona Danieli hakuomba kisasi ama kurudisha kisasi.
But Nebuchadnezzar was very revengeful.
Lakini Nebukadneza alipenda kulipisha kisasi.
We see that Daniel never got involved in politics.
Danieli hakujihusisha kwa mambo ya siasa.
And Nebuchadnezzar was very involved in politics.
Nebukadneza alipenda sana mambo ya siasa.
We see that Daniel looked at the long view of the prize.
Naona kwamba Nebukadneza alitazamia zawadi ile kubwa.
And Nebuchadnezzar looked at the short view.
Nebukadneza yeye alitazamia mambo ya muda mfupi.
We find that Daniel found favor with his captors.
Naona kwamba Nebukadneza alipendwa hata na wale waliomshika.
But Nebuchadnezzar was known as a tyrant and a cruel oppressor.
Lakini Nebukadneza yeye alijulikana kama mfalme mkaidi na mwenye kusumbua.
We see that Daniel was very humble and teachable.
Lakini tunaambiwa kwamba alikuwa mpole na mwenye kupenda mafundisho.
He had a lot of love and concern for other people.
Alipenda na alitamani kuelewa maisha ya watu.
He stood firm and he was noble.
Alisimama imara na alikuwa mtu wa heshima.
And we see that he lived in peace with all people. He tried to live in peace with all people.
Kuishi na amani na kila mtu.
We see that he was unbending in his principles.
Hakuwahi enda kando na yale mafundisho yake.
So we see that he was a man of conviction.
Alikuwa ni mtu ambaye ana msimamo imara.
But yet he had great love and compassion and tactfulness for other people.
Lakini alitumia ujuzi na upendo mwingi kwa watu wake.
So we see that this is the way God is he's trying to make us into today.
Hivyo ndivyo tunataka tupate kuishi.
Where Nebuchadnezzar and prideful.
Lakini Nebukadneza alikuwa mkaidi na mwenye kiburi.
He was very arrogant and selfish.
Alikuwa mchoyo na mwenye kujipenda.
He had a big ego.
Alikuwa anajipenda sana.
He was very moody.
Alikuwa wakasirika
and temperamental.
Mwenye kukasirika haraka.
He was very demanding.
Alikuwa na tamaa kubwa.
He had no electricity. No stove. And no refrigerator. And we see in 7 years, eventually his brain and body healed. And at the end of 7 years, he was able to recognize who God was. So normally when I take people into a detox diet, I take them more slow than in 1 hour. So God took him in 1 hour from the diet of the world to God's ultimate detox diet. Normally this process overnight, but God did it in 1 day. So normally when we go through a detox, we have a lot of cravings and withdrawal symptoms. We withdraw from caffeine, from tea and coffee and chocolate, from sugar and animal products, and cheese. And I can only imagine he had a blasted headache, I'm sure, for a few months. Because that's one of the big symptoms of a detox. And some of those symptoms are not just a blasting headache, but it creates a big mood swings where people start laughing for no reason. And they don't know why they're so happy and elated. And then maybe in the next hour or even 5 minutes, they find themselves crying. And their emotions are going up and down. And they get angry quick. They don't have any patience with people. Major mood swings. So I can only imagine Nebuchadnezzar was throwing his fist at God. That why are you doing this to me? What have I done to you? And in his pride and ego, he's like, but look at what I did. We see other symptoms include a lot of sleep. So I'm sure that he was sleeping all day long and all night long. That he had a major temper. As we start to detox, we have all these pimples that start to come out of our skin. Because this happens when our hormones get off balance. We have all these toxins trying to come out of our body. And when our liver is completely overloaded with toxins, that it's also coming out of our breath. So people who are detoxing usually have very bad breath. Because I guarantee that if you take the diet that you're on right now, of whatever that diet is, and you were to go to this diet, you won't like that diet either. Because your taste buds wouldn't be used to it. You'd be wanting to go back home. But yet God had him out there for 7 years. So we see that he also probably went through a lot of flu symptoms. Because when we go through detoxing, we often get achy and fevers. We get tired and we get cranky. And we just want to sleep. And I'm sure that's what he did as well. That as all those toxins now are being released from his body, he absolutely feels terrible. When I am moving my patients from the regular diet to a detox diet, I usually do it slow over a couple of weeks. And I make some changes for them and I say, I'll call you again in 2 weeks. Because I know that during those 2 weeks, people, they're impatient, they're angry, they're going to blame me, they're negative. And that's what Nebuchadnezzar was doing in 1 hour. Because it says in 1 hour God took him into the field like the oxen. And the principles of detoxing is the more toxins that we have in our body, the worse our detox symptoms are going to be. We have lots of body odor, stinky breath. We just start stinking from our whole body. And it starts to come out of our skin, out of our kidneys, out of our bowels. And so we know that everything that came out of him just stank to high heaven. And eventually I know that he started to have swollen lymph nodes. Because as wastes are being removed, they have to go, they go into our lymph system. And then where the food now starts to take care of it through our blood system. And I know that he also had a lot of seasonal allergies. And as we are detoxing, we get a lot of nausea and vomiting. And because these symptoms are so severe, that's why I take people a lot more gentle. But God saw that Nebuchadnezzar's situation was an emergency. Normally we would want to remove like salt, oil, and sugar first. We want to take them from their alcohol, tobacco, tea, and coffee. So instead of being gentle, God just in 1 hour just completely changed everything. So I know that he really suffered. Because I see how my patients suffer even when I take them slow. But eventually what started to happen though
Lakini kile ambacho kilianza kufanyika
was little by little he started to feel better.
Lakini kwamba kwa muda mfupi akawa anaanza kuhisi vizuri.
And maybe for the first 6 months to a year, he probably felt absolutely terrible.
Kwa miezi 6 hadi mwaka mmoja alikuwa na uchungu sana.
But eventually his immune system started to really
uwezo wake wa kupigana na magonjwa ulianza kuinuka.
And all of these symptoms would have happened progressively, slowly over 7 years.
Na haya yote yakawa yanaanza kuwa kutengeneza upya.
So he probably started sleeping a little bit less. And he probably saw a little bit more joy in his life, little by little. Then he saw a little bit more energy coming out of his body. And this was a day-by-day process as the toxins were removed. And he possibly had peace of mind. And eventually he became joyful, happy, and grateful. And for those 7 years he had lots and lots of time for reflection. And now as a side effect, he's removed or eliminate the risk for all his chronic diseases. And that included like osteoporosis, hypertension, cancer, diabetes, obesity, acne, kidney disease, arthritis, heart disease, gout, risk of stroke, and high cholesterol. In other words, all of the lifestyle disease reduced his risk in. So we know Daniel 1:15. We know appearance went from most likely obese, which was common to the rich people and the kings. And he would have had a really sickly and poor complexion. He would have had gaunty eyes and face. He would have had untoned muscles. Because he wouldn't have exercised on any kind of basis. And now he went to a full head of hair, to a really ruddy, beautiful complexion, very healthy looking, with a very clear complexion. He went to a normal weight. And he went to well-toned muscles. He would have had an erect form to stand up with. And now he had that fair countenance with undimmed senses and untainted breath. And he would have ended up looking just like Daniel and his 3 friends. So we see we're starting to form this picture of what this diet is doing for this man. And keep in mind that this is in an end-time prophetic book. So we also see that because diet, he now becomes humble and teachable. That now because he can think clearly, he honors God of heaven. He becomes repentant. We see that his reason returned. We see that he confessed for God. He made an acknowledgement of the God of heaven. He became reverent. He lost that boastful pride. with no more arrogance and no more character blemishes. He became a powerful witness for God now. We see that he has a powerful testimony. And we see that he became warm and with a grateful heart. We see that